Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining me as I present my session on youth preparedness programs and resources. So, my name is Willow Williams, and I am the Community Engagement Specialist in 4-H Youth Development, and I cover Taney, Stone, and Christian counties. So, right down here near the Arkansas border in southwest Missouri. Now, I'm also the 4-H My PI Missouri and Ready in the Middle state coordinator, and we're going to go over some of those programs. So, usually no one has ever asked why youth preparedness programs. They've actually been very excited about these youth preparedness programs. But to just go over, children or youth comprise approximately 25% of our population, and 4-H, we're the youth outreach of the University of Missouri, and we do have a career focus. Our logic model, if you look at it, our long-term goal is to help youth just find what they want to do after high school. So we also recognize that they're leaders, that they're influencers within their family, and they're the first responders. If something happens in their community, even if you have the fastest fire department, the fastest law enforcement, the fastest EMTs, it's still going to take them a few minutes or even more if they live in rural areas to have some professional first responders come in. So these youth, their families, they're the first responders in the community. And 4-H, we've always used youth as influencers to get the research from the University of Missouri out to families and communities within the state and the nation, because these youth are very influential. They're innovators. They're ready to pick up and lead in their community. And also, it's tough not having, raise your hand if you have an emergency kit, but do you have an emergency kit in your home? I don't think I did. Well, no, I didn't before then. Of course, I had my tools here, and I have, my fire extinguisher there, and I have some flashlights just all over the house, just wherever I can pick them up if the lights kind of go off. But do I have a place where I had an emergency kit? And I didn't. And then also think about, do you have an emergency kit in your car, at work, at some of those places that you're away from home and a disaster or an emergency might happen. So I remember when I was first going to school in Fayetteville, Arkansas for my master's degree, and I was staying with someone who had lived there for the longest time, and I just wasn't used to living in the hills, and certainly not to a lot of snow. And so it was snowy, it was January, and the lady I was staying with just decided to give me a candle and a little saucer and some matches so I could have heat and light. And she made sure that I had blankets and stuff in my car, because what happens if I'm stuck on a street or highway or something and it's cold outside? So I think about that now, and I always make sure that I have a first aid kit in my car. Of course, I have my emergency kit that has jumper cables and everything, and I haven't really used them for me as much, but I use them for other people if I see people out there and I can help them with battery problems. I've changed tires for people just because I have all the tools and necessary things within my car. And also I practice. I don't know if you've ever done that, but my dad would make me practice changing a tire. And so I do it at home if I know that I don't have a flat tire, so I'm not stressed out. And, he taught me how to get those lug nuts off that are pretty tight to get off. So it's a great, useful thing to teach the kids. Get them out there, let them change a tire. There's a lot of kids that don't know how to change a bicycle tire, a lot of adults that don't know how to change a bicycle tire or even air it up. I always have, I'm trying to think about it. The little thing that's your pressure gauge for your tires. I always have one. They're just a couple of dollars. I saw some people at the gas station that had a low tire. The gas station didn't have a pressure instrument in it, and so I gave them my little tool, and they used it, filled up their tires with air, and went on. But are we prepared for, that's not a huge emergency. That's not a hurricane. That's not an avalanche. But, if you're stuck on the side of the road and your battery won't start because you left the lights on, that's happened to me. Is your tire a little bit low or a lot low and you just don't want to drive on it anymore? Do you have something that can air up the tires? And honestly, I've started carrying quarters in my car as well, because so many of these gas stations that you stop at, they don't give you free air anymore. You have to go and pay for it. So that's things that you can think about. I also kayak. I have an emergency kit in my kayak too. In youth preparedness programs, it can involve the whole family. So a lot of these programs that we do, of course, the family can get involved and they can see the great job that the youth are doing. Pardon me. But, this is something that you can get the whole family involved in, and we want them to, because we want everybody in the family to be prepared. And finally, this is kind of a list I've made a lot, but youth gain useful life skills. I just talked about changing a flat tire, and career skills as well. So we'll go through some of these programs and you can see how they've gained career skills and found out what they want to do after they graduate from high school. So let me get a drink here again. So these are the programs that I use. And there's going to be lots of programs at the very end. We kind of go through surfing a lot of different resources on the web. You can find a lot of resources. I use MyPI Missouri, and it's for teenagers, and they actually complete the CERT training, and we want them to also complete CPR, first aid, and AED training, and they do a service learning project called Prep Plus 6. We'll get through that. But basically know that MyPI is for teenagers because they do go through that CERT training. They have to be old enough to understand the CERT training, and it's a training that adults go through when they're CERT trained, and when they finish, they have their certification, and they can become CERT team members at the school. They can become CERT team members with their local community as well. So say you have youth who are not teens yet, but who want to participate. We have 4-H Ready in the middle, and this was developed originally for middle school youth, but sometimes we have teenagers that don't want to go through the 20 or more hours it takes to go through the CERT team training, and so they can do Ready in the Middle as well. It's just probably about 2 to 3 hours. They go home and they do a home hazard audit. They also put together an emergency plan and a supply kit just for their family. So we know that we've given them the tools to go further if they want to, or if that's the only youth preparedness program that they do, great. They have a home hazard audit. They know how to do that. They know how to put their emergency plan and kit together, so that's great. So for even younger students, there's a comic book called Prepare with Pedro. It's in several different languages too. I know it's in Spanish. It's in Chinese and Vietnamese and I think a couple of others. But this is a FEMA resource. You can download it. You can get copies of it sent to you for free. And then there's the Junior Fire Service or Junior Firefighters. And this is something that we've done. It's a very intensive program. They went through the basic Firefighter 1 training that the adults go through, and then they're certified to go and work as part of the volunteer fire department. And as you know, most of our fire departments in our communities are volunteer fire department. There's only a few in the bigger cities that actually have career firefighters in their programs. But if these kids want to go on and be a firefighter, we've given them the first step, the first tools that they need to keep on going. So here's the MyPI program. It's actually a national program that was started in Mississippi. Mississippi has a lot of weather disasters. If you think about it, of course, tornadoes. We have, oh goodness, hurricanes there, floods there. So a lot of things happen in Mississippi. So they said, we're going to put something together. And they put together the MyPI program. So basically it's a CERT team certification, but we also have pre and post tests and pre and post surveys. What I like about that is that that's a standardized survey. And we know when we take that data, we're comparing that data to people in different states, in different countries. I know Canada and maybe some other countries have asked to start implementing MyPI. We have them in different territories. The federal government really wants this MyPI program in every state. So they are trying to quickly go through and train as many states as you can. Now you have to be a trained instructor to lead this program, and I am working on getting more lead instructors out there. If you're interested in becoming an instructor for MyPI, just contact me. We want to get it started. What's great about this too is that when kids pass all the requirements for the course, they get this great backpack. The backpack has their helmet, their goggles, their vest, their gloves, flashlights, triage tape, just about everything they need to be a CERT team member and to go out in the field. So that's a great, they're excited. They get that backpack when they graduate. It's over $100 in materials for that backpack. And it's a little bit better than a t-shirt, but we also like to have t-shirts and stuff too. So I've kind of gone over it a little bit. We do the CERT team training, and if you're not familiar with CERT's training, it has 8 main modules. So fire safety is one of them. Disaster psychology, not only helping people who've gone through a trauma of a disaster, but helping yourself to be prepared for that trauma and to make sure that you don't get any of that secondary trauma as well. We go through a simple triage and then rapid treatment. You know, we're not professionals out there. We're volunteers, but we can help triage individuals in an emergency and also do simple treatment out there too. We go through CERT and terrorism. We talk about, you know, threats to people damaging different places in our community and how to be prepared for it. Search and rescue, that's where we do some leveraging and cribbing. That's a really fun thing. I really enjoyed doing leveraging and cribbing, and I think I have a picture of it. And then we go through a whole list of weather and hazard, or weather and disaster hazards, like tsunami. And you think, okay, well, I don't have to worry about a tsunami. But anytime we can prepare these youth to go somewhere, say they're going to move to another country, another state, and they have to worry about these tsunamis, we've prepared them to not just be ready here in our own community, but to be prepared to go anywhere in the world that they need to. So we have something called annexes. That's where you can add CPR, first aid, AED certification, ham radio certification, NOAA weather radios, and we do like to focus on response careers in that too. And then Prep Plus 6, that's where we want the youth to prepare an emergency plan, basically a list of phone numbers, you know, what's going to be done if there's an emergency, and then a supply kit. And like I said, you don't have to go out and buy a $200 supply kit. You can just find things in your home and put them together in one spot. But then when you do that, you have to help 6 other families with theirs. So just think, if you have a classroom of 20 kids, you're going to make sure that, let's see, 20 times 7, 140 families. Well, do I have, yeah, 140 families that can be helped out with that. Sometimes in the morning it's hard to do math, huh? So here's some pictures of MyPI Missouri. Here's Connie Burnham. She's our community emergency management specialist at MU. She brought this program here to Missouri. Here we are out here. This is some of my students, and they're learning how to properly use a fire extinguisher. I had never done that either. I think this is a great thing to do. So they're working in a team. They're doing the pass method to go out and put out this fire. And you know, where do you point the extinguisher too? That's really important. I think most everybody gets wrong where they're going to point the fire extinguisher to put out that fire quickly. And then this last picture, as you can see, we're doing some leveraging and cribbing. Of course, we have a lot of people out there, and you're thinking, well, why don't they just lift up that beam? It looks like it's actually a picnic table that's turned over. Why don't they just lift it up? Well, say you're the only person out there, you have 2 people out there. Leveraging and cribbing can really help with victim extrication. So let's move on to 4-H Ready in the Middle. And going back to MyPI, it's an intensive program. Remember, that's a great program that can be used at some of our career centers, after-school programs. even in your health and science classes. So it's a great resource to have. A lot of our youth are very excited when they finished it. We even have certificates that say here's all the things they learned. So if they go to a job and they want to be hired, say it's a teen just going to McDonald's and wanting to get a job, they can say, hey, we're already trained in a lot of these things, especially fire hazards when you're talking about working at some of these places. And they're just great resources to have lots of good skills that the youth learn. So it's really intensive, and you might not have the time to do that. You might be in school, you might have younger kids, and about 2 hours of program is all they are willing to invest in. And that's great. Basically, for the first hour, we talk about what's a home hazard audit. Why do we do a home hazard audit? This is how you need to go home and do a home hazard audit. And we have the little form for them to fill out. So it's important to note that it's not a contest between the youth to say who has the safest home. I can tell you myself, I have a home I just bought. It's about 100 years old. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed on it. Of course, it's nice and safe and warm and stuff, but you know, when you look at electrical or look at some of the things that you need to fix a little bit more, the trees in the backyard, that's something that I noticed as potential hazards, and I want to get them fixed. So Ready in the Middle was developed by my PI, so it flows well with that program, and it does have the same pre and post surveys, not the same, but some pre and post surveys that are included. So remember, I talked about my tree. Anytime people go out and they look at my house, of course, I have a lot of things that are growing. Some things are overgrowing that I need to divide and conquer a little bit. I've got many trees in the front yard that kind of border my yard between my neighbors, and I live in the city. And if you can tell, you can see my roof line a little bit in the bottom left-hand corner. But that's a pecan tree, and they'll say, this is the biggest pecan tree I've ever seen, and it almost takes over my whole backyard. But I also noticed, you really can't see it in this photo, that it was getting too close to power lines. It was getting too close of my roof line, and I had another tree that actually, a black walnut, that was touching my roof line and my neighbor's roof line. And I said, you know, that's something I need to address right now, especially before the storms. I don't know if you can tell it. You might think that's not that big of a tree, but there's actually 2 people in the tree right now. And over on the left side, you can kind of see the rope where one of the guys climbed up into the tree and he's standing on a limb. And then on the right side, there's somebody as well. But that's a hazard that I identified. I had enough money to invest to say this is important enough. I want to go ahead and fix that before it even costs me more money in the future. So there's lots of different hazards that you can look at, and what can we do to make it safe? And that's really all that we want them to do, is to look at those hazards. Look at those hazards in the yard, some things that can just be picked up so people don't trip on them, they don't fall and hurt themselves. A story in my office is someone accidentally left one of those garden weasels out and right behind the garage, and so when she went out to go back up to go to work in the morning, that garden weasel just impaled her tire and totally made her car unusable. It's not very funny, but it's a tough thing. It's something that you have to deal with. So making sure that our tools are put up in a safe place, and even that we don't trip over things and hurt ourselves, or our pets don't. So going to pets, this is a bit of a home hazard example. This is my new little kitten, Winston. He looks really sweet, doesn't he? He was born in July. Nope, that was my, oh yeah, he was born in July. I'm trying to think, my puppy here, Petey, he was born a little bit earlier. He's almost a year old. Winston loves Petey. They're just the bestest of buddies. But I remember when I talked to the place that I adopted Winston from, they said, make sure your house is, you know, cat safe. And I thought, surely it's all cat safe. And I think every day I go through, this morning, in fact, I went through and had to take some things away so Winston wouldn't get into trouble and knock things over or knock things over on himself. So it's the same thing, you know, when you have a baby, or maybe you have some children coming over to your house that you're not used to having as much, and you go around the house and you start looking and saying, how can I make this place more safe so they don't get hurt and so they don't break some of my stuff too. And Winston definitely opened up my eyes to some things I needed to, especially all of my my fake plants and stuff I have around the house. He's just totally attracted to them, and he doesn't care what he damages or if he might get hurt in the process. So it's the same thing, you know, go through your house and look and see, are there too many things plugged in into one plug? Do we have some water leaking somewhere? You know, these are basic things. It guides you through the whole sheet, but it's a great tool to use. You know, we do the same thing. I know my dad is a recreational pilot, and I don't know if any of you are, but if you're at the airport and you're about to take off, he has this sheet, and it's clipped right there to his leg, or he carries it around, and he goes and he does a 360 around the airplane. He checks everything out. He marks off that checklist every single time because we want to make sure we're safe. I am big into riding bicycles, and we do something called the ABC Quick Check: air brakes, crank cassette cogs, so quick releases, and do a check ride. I do that absolutely every single time. Now, my uncle was a mechanic, and he used to always tell me to check my air all the time on my car, and I don't do that as much, but certainly we do take it in for our regular maintenance. So if we do things like that on bicycles or a plane and a car that we don't spend as much time in, shouldn't we do that with our home too? Just regularly go around and do a home hazard audit. So that's what we're encouraging them to do. Here's an example of an emergency kit that I thought was pretty good. I got it off Pinterest. You know, so many times people tell me we don't have the money to put an emergency kit together. And if you have youth, have a scavenger hunt. If you're in a classroom and there's things around, just say to the kids, let's do a scavenger hunt and pick up everything that we want that can be put into an emergency kit. They might pick up scissors. Don't run with the scissors, right? But scissors are a great example. How many times have we needed something and the scissors could help out? Tape could help out too. You know, if there's a chemical spill or you live near railroad tracks, that's important. If you live near a nuclear plant, you know, have that plastic and tape together so you can tape up doors and everything to be safe. But not only that, but just tape too. I was thinking about things to repair PVC pipe. You know, if something like that happens, something happens in your home, to have that non-sparking wrench tool if you need to shut off your gas. Having a flashlight. Flashlights are so important. Like I said, I have flashlights all over the house, but I want to make sure that they're in my safe place too. I have a basement. I have water in the basement. You don't have to go out and buy water, even though it's inexpensive, but if you have a lot of drinkable containers that you want to refill with some water and put down there, that's great. I know my mom, she's always thinking that the water might go out, and so she has containers of water in the bathroom so she can flush if she needs to flush, or clean things out if she needs to clean things out. So you can also have water that's not drinkable water, but that you can use for cleaning. You can see we've got gloves, we've got the first aid kit. People think of that. If you can have extra medicine, I know a lot of times with insurance we can't go out and purchase more medication than what we have for that month, but I always do carry I take medicine all the time, and I make sure that I have just a small sampling of it out that could last me 3 days. One day, you know, if there's a tornado and you need to go down there. So weather radio is great. Not everybody will go out and buy a $20 or $30 weather radio. We might use our phones, but know that, you know, if you're going to be in your basement, do they have good cell service? Can they charge it up? I know the first thing before I see severe weather alerts I charge up all my electronic devices. I charge up my computer, I charge up my phone, because I always think if the electricity is going to go out, at least I can watch a movie for a little while. My phone will be charged up so I can contact someone. And also have food. You know, if you're down there stuck and there's a tornado going and I'm down there in the basement, I want to make sure I have some food down there, like a snack bar. And not just for me, but for my pets too. Remember, I have a new kitten and a new puppy, and they're going to want to play. They don't know that there's dangerous weather out there necessarily, so they want to make sure that they can play. And I have that in my safe places too, and snacks for them too. They are snack crazy. So do that scavenger hunt. Think about what kids might pick up as something that can be in their kit. And honestly, I don't know if many things can be wrong, because if it's out there for use in your everyday life, you might really need it for an emergency. And I know we are living through a pandemic now, and our minds have really changed as to what we might need in an emergency, and cleaning supplies are one of the big ones. If you've ever put a cleaning supply kit together for people who've gone through hurricanes, think about all that's in there and say, hey, we might need that too. Put it in a 5-gallon bucket. I get those buckets that have kitty litter in it, and I reuse those buckets for just about everything. And I have my emergency supply kits in there too. But a lot of it's just sitting out on the shelves in my basement. So prepare with Pedro. I like Pedro. He reminds me of Chilly Willy a little bit, if anyone remembers those cartoons. So it's a nice little activity book, coloring book with stories, and it really just goes through the preparedness terms, like what's a hazard, what does it mean, what's preparing, emergency, safe place, and disasters. So this is even for our younger kids. I really like it. I like the little cartoony guy, and honestly, I still color too. And anytime you have FEMA materials, you can order them here. Now, you don't have to be a certified instructor for Prepare with Pedro like you do with My PI or Ready in the Middle, but it's just a great source. So finally, we have the junior fire service that I've used. And these kids are really dedicated kids. We went through trainings 2 hours a night for a week. Every week for a whole year. They were immensely dedicated. They went through the basic firefighter training. They took the exam. Here's a picture of them. I don't know if you can tell, it was a hot day, especially when they're up in they're dressed up in their gear and they have their SCBA on, so their breathing apparatus on. And it can get really hot. And, you know, they just did wonderful. They all certified. And we even had one young man who was graduating, and he went on to volunteer for the fire service after graduation, and it helped him have a new outlook on a possible career for him. And that's really important. In some of our communities, in the rural communities that we have here, and even in our more urban or suburban communities, there are kids that, you know, at career days, we keep on talking about 4-year college or even community college, but we really don't really discuss or talk about a lot of the trades they can get into that can provide them a really good outlook on life, that can make them feel proud about what they do, that can even move on to other things. So I think programs like Junior Fire Service, your community might have medical explorers. So I know we have that in our community too at our hospitals. And, you know, some of them might say, hey, we're just going to go and do that year to year and a half program to become an LPN, and we'll get started with that. You know, there's some communities that work with law enforcement and have some of these junior law enforcement programs too. And 4-H is always willing to help with that. I think how this made such a great partnership is that 4-H, we work with youth, we're youth development specialists, and our fire department, we're knowledge specialists. So we work together to say, this is what our community needs, these are what the youth need, and we can move on from there. And also they're worried about insurance and liability, and we help them all out with that too. And 4-H, we offer programs to any youth in our community, and we make sure that we can help fund where we need to fund or get grants where we need to get. So if your organization wants to do a program and you're not for sure about some things, or you want to get some partners together, 4-H is a great organization. The University of Missouri is a great place to get started with that. So I've kind of put this timeline together. Remember, I talk about 4-H, we have a very specific career focus. And so I look at this timeline, and graphically it's always better for me. And I look at the ages and stages of youth and how we want them to prepare for careers. So when they're about 5 to 9, we call that our junior age in 4-H. We want them to be aware about careers, aware about what's out there and what can be done. Same thing with disaster preparedness. We want them to be aware of the terms and really compare and contrast some of those terms to things that they already know. So once they get a little bit older, we call that our intermediate age. You might also call it middle school. We can do Ready in the Middle. So that's where I do the Ready in the Middle program. And, it's a great program, so they can start exploring disaster preparedness. They can start possibly meeting people who are disaster preparedness, emergency management personnel, and they've got that hands-on skills that they're already doing in middle school. And finally, there's that preparation and planning stage. We're preparing them, we're giving them the exact skills they need. I find it really important, just when we did the junior fire service, I wanted to give them the experience that professionals have. Same thing with my PI. They're getting certifications, the same thing as the professionals, the people, the adults out there are having, because we want them to be prepared. We want them to be even more prepared than the average person, so they can go and achieve their goals and have not only just excellent life skills, but also career skills if they choose to go in that path. Now let's say they don't want to go into the fire department and they don't want to be an emergency management person, but let's say they want to be a teacher. Just think about all the skills they've had already: organization, teamwork, hazard preparedness. That's excellent when you're talking about becoming a teacher, and putting that down on your resume and saying, I'm even more prepared than the general person that you're going to see out there. Boy, this makes me so much thirsty, so sorry for always stopping to get a drink. So finally, I just have other resources that are out there. And I know sometimes these online lessons can be kind of tough, and especially PowerPoints. I'm not huge on just PowerPoints going through and that being the whole session. So I'm sorry that we can't see each other, that we can't do some hands-on things. But I am, after this, going to go, and you can see different websites that you can go to, resources that you can go to. I thought it's best to just walk you through some of these so you can see what's out there. If you're anything like me, you'll give me those resources and I'll put it on the back burner. That's something I need to look at. But maybe if I can open up those websites and you can see them already, that will help. FEMA is a great resource. Like I said, they've got lots of things out there. They're for free. They really cross-check with other organizations, Red Cross, CDC, Missing Kids, Save the Children, so they can share those resources. They want our youth and families to be prepared. That's what they want. You'll know when I go through there, there's a lot of fun things. I saw something off of the Hunger Games as an activity that you can do. There's a lot of zombie apocalypse activities that you can do. I don't know right now if that's the best thing to do. You might gauge it with your youth, but maybe we don't want to talk about a pandemic of zombies out there when we're really dealing with a very serious pandemic right now. So that's something that we go through in CERT training, is trauma, and even though it's okay for us and we think it's okay, there might be something in the history of the youth. Maybe they're really worried about it. Maybe their family is in a high risk area, and maybe it's just not the best time to do that. But later on, hopefully when things are cleared up and we're back to good health, and that's not a stressor on us, we can go back and revisit some of those activities that can be fun. So again, after this, we're going to go through a bunch of slideshows, and like I say, I can't help with hands-on things. The scavenger hunt is a great hands-on thing if you want to do it with your youth. Leveraging and cribbing. Of course, you saw that picture. You can go out and you can do leveraging and cribbing with the youth out there. You can get Jenga. I have Jenga sets in my office right now that I use for other activities. Get those little Jenga blocks. Get a Barbie doll out and put a cookie sheet or sheet pan on top of the Barbie doll and have them as their separate desk, learning the concepts of what leveraging and cribbing is. So cribbing is where you're stacking up those blocks, and leveraging where you're kind of using the lever system to lift it up little bit by little bit to get that person out of there. So thanks again. Let me know if you have any questions, and on the next page we're going to start going over a lot of the websites, and just let me know if you need anything. Okay, so I'm just going to go through several websites. I know that sometimes listing websites is good enough for some people, but for some of us we might have a hard time finding them, and just give a general overview before you spend the time doing all the surfing. So my biggest resource is FEMA, and they have a lot of great resources, and what they don't have they put together in a catalog, so they try to let you know what everybody else has. So this is the FEMA page that's titled Emergency Planning with Children, and we talk about why it's important to do emergency planning with children. But if you keep on going down, they have a youth preparedness catalog that I think is pretty good. Maybe it doesn't get all of the resources that are out there, and I think I haven't found anything newer than 2016. But if you go through this catalog, we have our different regions here in Missouri. We're in Region 7, and we work together with other states to try to provide resources to people in our states. So they have some really good books too, and I'll click on one of these and let's see if we can. Sometimes the FEMA links don't go directly to where you want them to. I think they are, and this didn't go to where I wanted it to. Just this past year they've been redoing their links, and so when you go to the FEMA page, unfortunately you're going to get a lot of broken links. But you can always just go and let's see if we can. You can copy it and then you can paste it up here. But really what this is if you want to implement a youth preparedness program, it really gives you the step-by-steps for implementing. Here's a workbook, here's a checklist, a funding guide, how do you fund these programs, and it really gets into details like who should you partner with and who can help you out with certain things. So I think these guides are really good. Let me try to click on one of them again, and oh, there we go. It got to the funding guide. So as you can tell, it's not overly wordy, but it gives you plenty of information. And I really like this chart. A lot of times when we put together a program, we just think, well, here's what we need. But I like how they put things in must have, should have, nice to have columns. And I think from now on, when I start putting in a wish list, I have a wish list in Excel of programs I want to do or project books I want to put together. So it'd also be nice in the columns to have must have, should have, and nice to have in there too. And they just break everything down, creating a budget, background checks, facilities, so everything that you might need. And actually I should increase this so you can see this. And we'll go back to the must have, should have, nice to have. So this is just a great resource, these FEMA resources, not just the lesson plans, but also how to put together some of these clubs or after-school programs or in-school programs. And another good resource when you're talking about that is Utah State University and their 4-H program. So they've put together a lot of these guides with a lot, and they keep on adding more that go through different topics of 4-H projects. And I've used some of them. So here's one, Emergency Preparedness, Surviving a Zombie Apocalypse. So you'll find out when you start going through here, surviving zombie apocalypses are a pretty popular topic to work with youth preparedness. Here's one, 4-H Incident Command Clubs. So I think they're great resources. You can't just automatically click on them to download. I think you have to click and then put your email address in. I've done that before. You'll notice that Utah provides discovery kits for checkout and even stay-at-home resources. We don't have those kits yet in Missouri, but I can say in Taney County, where I'm located with Taney County 4-H, if your after-school program, in-school program, any youth group wants to borrow any of the kits that we have, if you're in Taney County, you're more than welcome. You just contact me to get that done. And you never know, the county that you're at, they might have resources like that too. So just call your local MU Extension office and ask them if they have the resources, if they're willing to provide any resources, and they might be able to help you out. So let's go back to this catalog. Goes back up to the top each time. So like I said, it's really great. It lists just a lot of different emergency preparedness curriculum. Some you might be familiar with, some you might not be. Anything that's FEMA resources or FEMA curriculum, they will send you for free. I mean, the CERT training is 300-page instructor book. You don't have to print that out. You just go online to FEMA and you order it and they'll send it to you for free. So that's the great thing about FEMA, is that you can get all these resources printed out for you, copies for your students, and everything is free. So that's why I do use some of our FEMA materials. Not only that, but because we also work with our state emergency management and we do the CERT training. So all of that comes from FEMA. Now you have like junior, National Junior Firefighter. So you click on that and then you click here. I did use a lot of the resources from the National Junior Firefighter program to get us started with our Junior Fire Service program. So they have lots of useful books about how to get started with that and how to do different programs. So this is a great resource too. Now going back to FEMA, I'm going to see if I can find the ones that I use a whole lot. So they have ready to help cards. It might not be listed here, but the ready to help cards are great. I think they might mention Safe Kids somewhere, and Safe Kids is also, you know, if you go to that organization, they have lots of great kits that can be checked out to our instructors. I'm in the Southwest Missouri area, and I work with Safe Kids Springfield, and they cover just this whole Southwest Missouri area. Let's see, going down here for curriculum, if I can find, of course, you've got your emergency response team. The STEP program is kind of in between Ready in the Middle and My PI. So there's no certification with it. You don't get CERT certification, but it's a little bit of a stronger program than Ready in the Middle. Ready in the Middle is just supposed to be a smaller program, but you're more than welcome. You can download and print out the STEP curriculum, or you can just ask them to send some to you, and they can send some to you. The Pillowcase Project is a great one for younger kids. It's the American Red Cross. Basically, they're putting an emergency kit into a pillowcase. And so that's a great way to think about, you know, that you don't have to go out and buy a $200 kit, that you can just put things in a pillowcase and it can be there and you're good with it. So sorry I have to keep on scrolling up and down. But this is what surfing is like, right? So you'll see Safe Kids they've got Safe Kids worldwide. So you'll see in a lot of different states, Safe Kids Colorado. We do CERT, but we also do MyPI, Ready in the Middle. So we do a lot of programs here in Missouri. So this is a little bit dated, but it's still great to give you kind of a background of what's happening. So let's see, go back here. And like I said, there's lots of them. You can look in here and see Danger Rangers. It sounds kind of fun. I haven't checked that one out yet. But I Get Ready or Ready to Help. I don't know if this is the Ready to Help. A lot of them are like graphic novels, comic books that FEMA puts out. CDC puts one out on surviving a zombie apocalypse. This one looks like it's off of the Hunger Games. And we'll keep on going down. Ready Kids, Ready Set Prepare, Ready Wrigley. That's a hard one for me to always say. And this is through CDC. It's another kind of comic books that they can have, but it goes through, especially the hazards when we go through and look at some of the hazards. This is great to have here too. I should start paying attention to my pages, and then I know I can go down to that certain page. So they even have them categorized out by age, but you can keep on going. I don't think I was able to find the link readily easily for Ready to Help, the Disaster Master, Build a Kit, Be a Hero. Those are all FEMA programs. And like I said, the FEMA programs are great. There might be something that you're more interested in here. And like I said, this is about 4 or 5 years old, so it's a little bit older, so there might be more resources out there. You can always contact me. I know we work with Eden. They do have a lot of your organizations that can help out here too. Missing and Exploited Children has some good resources. The Kids Smart and Net Smart Kids. So if you're talking about internet safety, they have really good resources. Save the Children has some disaster checklists, but like I said, FEMA, they have disaster checklists as well that you can go in, or emergency planning checklists that you can go in and ask them to send you already printed out versions. So I might end with just going through this. Like I said, there's lots of great resources. FEMA has these resources for free. I really do like a lot of these, not just lesson plans and resources, but the implementation checklist. Let's see if we can, yeah, this link works. So of course they have a guidebook, but here's just a very short checklist. It's 7 pages and talks about getting started and the steps you need to do to get started. Short-term goals, long-term goals. If you're a logic model person like I am, it's great to have this just written out to think about it. What are the hazards that are present in your community? I know in Taney County with all these lakes in low areas, of course we've got the high areas, the mountains, but flooding is really prominent here. It's probably prominent in your area. So things like that might really push what sort of disaster preparedness or emergency management things you're going to plan for. It might be internet safety. So you never know. So this just helps you go through that planning. And so when someone says, why are we putting this program together? You can really show that you've really thought this out, engaging partners. And here's a quick list of potential partners. Your emergency manager. You know, I work with Connie Burnham, which she is on our MU campus, but she's a community emergency management specialist. And she's been great to work with. People at our statewide emergency management association, great to work with. So you can go through a few more of these resources and just think about, do you already have this connection? Is it a connection pretty easy to make? I have to go and grab a drink of my green tea every once in a while. Parents or guardians. I know one of our parents that leads our archery program. He's also an EMT, and unless you sit back and talk with some of these parents or grandparents or some of the people who help out, you never know what they might have done. I was talking with someone, and he's a retired entomologist from another state, and he retired in this area. So we have a wealth of people that might not just necessarily say that, hey, I'm a first aid instructor, or I'm an EMT. So they're great resources to have too. And like I said, this FEMA resource, it's wonderful. I use them. I have this in a book. I share it with other people that want to start any of these youth preparedness programs. And this is just, here's your workbook. Same thing off of that too, short-term goals, long-term goals. So it's a little bit longer, it's 15 pages, and you'll notice that implementing the community-based program, 72 pages, and it really goes in depth. So it just depends on, if you need all of these, the program director might really like this one, and then the people who are actually implementing the program might really like to use the checklist or the workbook. And like I said, here's this funding programs, risk management. I know with our junior fire service, we really did talk about risk management and insurance and made sure that we were doing everything safely. So this is just really short, 12 pages. Anytime we do a program, we do have risk management assessments. And we put down in the program, who are the people that we're going to call if this or this happens. So great resources again. I don't want to keep you too much, but you might just go through this on your own. And like I said, this will take you to the CDC, it will take you to Red Cross, it will take you to lots of different programs. You can get lost in it. But I found through my own experience that the MyPI, the Ready in the Middle, Pillowcase Project, some of those things are well established. I like things that have our pre-survey and post-survey, especially when it goes to national data, and I can really compare it to see what's going on in our neck of the woods too. So if you have any more questions or any more feedback for me, just feel welcome to contact me, Willow Williams, and of course my email address is williamswl@missouri.edu. So thanks again, and I hope you stay prepared.